Welcome to Southfields. This is the home of KHL and Construction Europe. Joe and I are going to be taking a look back at 2015 and some of the topics we covered during the year. And then we're going to take a look at 2016 to see what we can expect then.
We'll be taking you month by month through all the biggest news stories of the year. In April, the company celebrated its 25th anniversary, and we'll be speaking to James King, the Managing Director, about how the company was formed.
So let's start with the February issue. We reported that there were plans put in place by the European Commission to ensure that the Trans-European Transport Network, TEN-T, is fully operational by 2030. These plans were said to have taken a step forward with the publication of 9 studies of the current state of play and the development needs of the core network corridors. The Commission studies identified infrastructure development needs requiring approximately €700 billion of financial investment until 2030. The Commission said the studies highlighted the importance of optimising the use of infrastructure along the corridors, notably through intelligent transport systems, efficient management, and the promotion of future-oriented clean transport solutions. It also pointed out that this was the first time that tens of thousands of kilometres of railroad, inland waterway connections, ports, airports and other transport terminals have been studied in such a comprehensive way and with a common methodology.
Februari also saw Irish materials producer CRH announcing it was the first company to enter discussions with Lafarge and Holcim about acquisitions after these two businesses announced a major divestment programme as part of gaining regulatory approval for their proposed merger. Later on, May in fact, CRH confirmed it had entered into a legal binding deal to acquire Lafarge and Holcim businesses. The deal was agreed at €6.5 billion, conditional on the completion of the Lafarge-Holcim merger. Then, in August, the acquisition was completed with the exception of the Philippines, which was expected to close in the third quarter of this year.
The February issue of Construction Europe carried our report on Moscow's 4th Urban Forum. It looked at the problems of tackling the revitalisation of city infrastructure and developing major new urban centres, which remain a key test for governments and planners across the world. It unveiled a wealth of schemes for enhancing the Russian capital's central areas and road and rail systems.
In March, we reported that average construction production increased by 2% for the year 2014 in the Eurozone and by 3% in the EU28, according to first estimates from Eurostat, the EU statistical organisation. However, its figures comparing December 2014 against December 2013 showed a decline of 3.5% in the Eurozone, with the EU28 down by a total of 0.5%. There was encouraging research from the UK's Construction Products Association and Germany on sales of construction machinery. The results for the Eurozone indicating a year-on-year decline in December 2014 were said by Eurostat to be a result of building construction falling by 4.7%, while civil engineering increased by 1.4%.
Chinese manufacturer SANY renamed its European operations SANY Europe, a move it said would reflect the actual situation better and emphasise the company's European outreach. When it was set up in 2008, it was called SANY Germany. Since then, it said it had been widening its operational market and had now taken an important step towards demonstrating that it was not just a German company but a European one.
March was also our show issue for the Intermat Fair in Paris, France, which included World of Concrete Europe for the first time.
In our 25th anniversary edition in April, we reported that the European Commission's EU investment plan and its proposal for a European Fund for Strategic Investments, EFSI, which had been announced in November 2014, was welcomed by FIEC, the European Construction Industry Federation. However, it also expressed some concerns. It said EFSI would be an investment-friendly framework and that the creation of this leverage instrument was good news and a very good signal for the EU and international private investors.
The European construction equipment industry found 2014 to be a troubled yet good year, with sales on the European market growing by 9% compared to 2013, according to CC, the Committee for European Construction Equipment. It said that exports showed some growth momentum. Coming behind North America, the European construction equipment markets was the second most dynamic region in 2014. The market was still more than 40% below the record levels seen in 2007.
This year, KHL, the company behind Construction Europe, celebrated its 25th anniversary, with various events, including a party here at our world headquarters for staff and suppliers, hosted by Managing Director James King, who founded the company. There was also a look back at 25 years of Construction Europe in the issue, where it was pointed out that in that time there'd only been 3 editors. They are Paul Marsden, a director of the company, Chris Slight, until recently editor of sister paper International Construction and now with sister company Off-Highway Research, and me. There have been 2 advertisement managers in that time, James and David Stowe. James started KHL and Construction Europe was his first magazine. I asked him if he could explain the thinking behind the launch.
Yeah, it seems like yesterday, Sandy, but in the late 80s there was a lot of changes going on in the European economy as a whole, with the move towards the Single European Act. I mean, that was due to come in 1992, and this was changing the landscape enormously for every industry. The construction sector was experiencing massive changes, and nobody was writing about those changes from an independent point of view. And a lot of the suppliers to the industry were looking at Europe as a single European market for the first time ever. And this was going to be the biggest market they had in the world, bigger than the US, bigger than Japan, certainly bigger than China at that stage. And really they had no way of promoting a European image. Their customers were going to be working, not just in Paris, but in Copenhagen and in London and in Manchester and Madrid. And they needed to know that their suppliers were able to support them right across Europe. So there was an information need on one hand, there was an advertising need on the other hand, and really back then that's all you needed as a magic recipe for a magazine. There was no need to think about websites or e-newsletters or Twitter or Facebook or anything like that. It's very simple formula. So I decided to launch the magazine in February 1989. It took a while to raise the money, a few interesting meetings with banks, but I learnt how to raise the money. And as like a pregnancy, 9 months later, we started the company on December the 7th, 1989. 4 months later, we launched Construction Europe magazine.
And since those early days, KHL has grown steadily.
Yeah, I mean, we're very proud of our growth. I mean, when I had this wild idea when we started the company that we wanted to be the largest provider of construction information in the world. I'm not sure if a lot of people would have believed me then, but we have achieved that now, 25, 26 years later. We now have 13 magazines. We have exhibitions, conferences all over the world, websites, e-newsletters, book publishing, videos. Any way information is distributed, KHL is there. I think these days it's not so much the method of distribution, it's the quality of the information. And we will deliver that information in whatever format our readers wanted around the world. And I can see nothing but expansion for KHL in the future in this format. We're in a great position. We're very highly regarded around the world. We now have we have 3 offices in China. We have an office in Chicago, in Phoenix, in Santiago, in Rio, believe it or not. Well, that's more like a lifestyle choice, but we have an office there nevertheless. An office now in India, an associate office in Tokyo, and a very good joint venture in Istanbul. So we've got a great infrastructure now to grow KHL. And with the acquisition this year of Off-Highway Research, the world's leading market research company and management consultancy, I think that gives us a string to our bow that we didn't have before. So I'm very confident about the future. And I think, I don't know, the more information Google has, infinite amounts of information on any subject, I think that plays into our hands. I think readers need a trusted and respected source of information. A bit like BBC. I mean, if people will get their news from Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn, so, but they still need it validated by a bona fide media source. And KHL, in its own small way, wants to be the BBC, or I hope we are seen as the BBC of the global construction industry.
You've spoken about where KHL is now, but what does the future hold?
I mentioned that a little bit earlier, that I'm extremely confident about the future. And not all print media publishers can say that. As far as our print is concerned, that 5 years ago was 85% of our business. It's now down to about 55% of our business. But the print media is still growing. So what we're doing is adding to our information sources through market research, through management consultancy, through big data projects. We're starting to identify individuals around the world, not just macro circulation details, but individuals who are buying our advertisers' products with the size of their projects and the type of equipment that's being bought. And I think that's going to be a big part of our future. Being able to identify across the world where the hotspots are for construction. But you know, really, I think our print magazines will continue. I think our strong digital products, strong digital revenue is coming from our strong print magazines. And I don't see that changing, really.
In May, a proposal to allow the installation of replacement engines in non-road mobile machinery, NRMM, for a period of up to 10 years from the end of the original emission stage was welcomed by CC, although it called for a longer timescale. In the current directive, the European Commission proposal for the next stage of exhaust emission regulations for off-highway engines didn't include a provision for replacement engines. CC said that such a provision was essential because it allowed the manufacturer of new engines to comply with the original limit values of the engine which is to be replaced.
The roles of Case and its sister company New Holland within CNH Industrial were redefined in May, with Case concentrating on the construction industry and New Holland focusing on the agriculture sector. For many years the two companies have had an apparently overlapping portfolio of products, but Andy Blandford, Vice President for Construction Equipment in the EMEA region, Europe, Middle East and Africa, said that this had now changed. We caught up with Andy Blandford at Intermat, for which a video can be downloaded from the KHL.com video zone or on YouTube.
Case New Holland Industrial have got two valued construction equipment brands, and we've decided that strategically for Europe, Middle East, Africa, our prime focus for the construction equipment customer is Case Construction Equipment. So everything from 1 to 75 ton for infrastructure, waste, quarrying, recycling, house building is Case Construction Equipment.
In June, an investigation into allegations of dumping of Chinese-made rebar on European markets was launched by the European Commission's Trade Directorate General, DG Trade. Dumping is the practice of selling a product on export markets at either below its price on the home markets or below its cost of production. It is regarded as a form of protectionism and as a predatory tactic in international trade to win market share. However, we have since reported in February of this year that the European Commission has ordered that steel imported into the European market from China is to be subject to registration, meaning that tariffs will be put in place if the products are found to have been dumped in Europe.
The European Investment Bank, the EIB, said it would maintain significant lending volumes from 2015 to 2017 when it published its operational plan for the period. The EIB, which is owned by and represents the interests of the European Union member states, said it remained well placed to support investment growth, reinforce economic and social cohesion, sustain employment and play a critical role in restoring EU competitiveness.
The main show in the UK last year was Plantworks, the second time the show has been held. This time it was at a new venue, at Bruntingthorpe in Leicestershire.
I attended a climate change summit in Paris, where speakers included French President François Hollande, which was held 6 months ahead of the COP21 summit in December, also in Paris. I was also at a seminar held alongside the May summit, which was organised by UNEP, the United Nations Environment Programme, and FIDIC, the International Federation of Consulting Engineers. The subject of this was the ABC of Sustainable Cities, an international glossary put together for the COP21 UN Climate Change Conference.
In our July-August edition, we reported that Volvo Construction Equipment launched kits which allow machines fitted with European Stage 3B compliant engines to be de-tiered for sale as used machines in lesser regulated markets. The modification is necessary, as diesel with very low sulphur content tends not to be available outside highly regulated markets like Europe, Japan and the US. Ultra-low sulphur diesel is essential for equipment fitted with Stage 3B and higher emissions control systems.
There were 3 takeovers included in this edition, as the mining equipment manufacturer Joy Global acquired Doosan Infracor's hydraulic breaker and attachment business, Montabert. Porbau, a wholly owned subsidiary of Austrian-based Por, agreed with Bilfinger to purchase Bilfinger Infrastructure based in Poland. And UK contractor Kier completed its purchase of Mouchel, having acquired the entire issued share capital of MRBL, the delisted company created when Mouchel was acquired by its management and lenders in 2012.
This issue also included the annual CE 100 league table of Europe's top contractors, which found that while little changed at the top of the league, further down it was clear that strong individual markets were driving growth for domestic contractors.
Closer to home, we were able to report that KHL Group had acquired international market research and management consultancy company Off-Highway Research. Formed in 1981, Off-Highway Research specialises in the research and analysis of international construction and agricultural equipment markets, and is the largest of its kind in the world.
In September, the good news was a rise of 29% in construction equipment sales in Italy during the first 6 months of last year, while exports from the country also increased, according to the latest figures from Italian Construction Equipment Machinery Manufacturers Association, Unacea.
Overall, sales of construction equipment in Western Europe were expected to grow 1% in 2015, according to a new forecast from Off-Highway Research. Total sales in the region were expected to reach 125,704 units in 2015. The 2 largest markets in Europe, Germany and the UK, looked positive, with 3% growth for 2015. The UK was expected to continue to be Europe's largest equipment market in unit terms, with volumes forecast to hit 33,712 machines.
Jean-Claude Fayet, president of the Fayet Group, was interviewed, and he explained that acquisition had played a big part in the growth of the group. This included compaction equipment manufacturer Bomag, which it acquired in 2005, and gave it a leading position in that sector.
We took a look at auctions and used equipment, and I visited the Ritchie Brothers auction in Italy. A video of that visit is on the Video Zone and on YouTube. One of the first things you notice on a visit to an auction is the sense of theatre, something which has always been a part of the process. The calmness of the bidders contrasts with the frenetic patter of the auctioneer and the energy of the bid catchers stirring up the bids from the floor. Nowadays, there's the added element of the online bidder, purchases being made from anywhere in the world.
In October, it was reported that more than 20 of Caterpillar's facilities and over 10% of its manufacturing area could be affected by consolidations and closures as a result of the company's weakened sales and revenues outlook. A total possible workforce reduction of more than 10,000 people is being predicted. Meanwhile, a rapid deterioration in world construction equipment markets was being blamed for up to 400 proposed redundancies at UK-based manufacturer JCB. However, in November, shop floor employees at JCB voted to work shorter hours for the next 3 months in a move aimed at saving the jobs of colleagues at risk of compulsory redundancy.
A 5-point manifesto on the successful digital transformation of the construction and the agricultural machinery industries was delivered to EU institutions by the presidents of CC and CEMA, the European Agricultural Machinery Association, at their joint political summit in Brussels, Belgium. The 5 EU priority actions for smart regulation cover virtual testing and self-propelled vehicles.
Sam Wyant, Global Director of Sales and Marketing at Terex Trucks, discussed the purchase of the Terex Hall of Business and how the articulated and rigid frame models fitted into the new setup.
In November, we reported that Finnish-based contractor YIT had restructured its operations in Russia and has estimated 10.4 million euros of non-recurring costs for the third quarter of 2015. The company said it would reduce its risk level in Russia by scaling down its production, but will continue to operate in all current locations, which it said would ensure greater flexibility to maintain cost efficiency and competitiveness.
Meanwhile, German-based Bilfinger announced it would restructure the company following a review by its executive board. The German contractor will look at services, industries and markets in 2 independent segments, industrial and building and facility.
With the upcoming Bauma Fair very much in mind, I spoke to Klaus Dietrich, CEO of Messe München, about what to expect at April's show. That's yet another video on the Video Zone and YouTube.
The construction and mining world is here from all over the country, all the world, and this really makes it unique. And the presentation of the exhibitors, you see many events. It's nice to see how they present their brand, their products. That's also very impressive. You won't see it anywhere in the world. Oh, I think it's the Olympic Games for the whole construction and mining industry. All over the world, exhibitors and visitors are meeting in Munich. You can see all the innovations in the industry there because it's every 3 years. So many companies develop new products and launch this new product to the world market at Bauma. So I would say it's somehow a firework of innovations there.
And in our December-January edition, we reported the growth rate of total construction output predicted by Euroconstruct for 2015 had been revised downwards from the 1.9% suggested at its Warsaw, Poland conference in the summer to 1.6% for the region it covers, but this year was said to be on the up. At its conference in Budapest, Hungary, the 80th conference to be held by the network of construction forecasters, Euroconstruct predicted a record growth rate of 3% for 2016 as opposed to 2.4% in Warsaw, For 2017 there was no big revision, with 2.7% projected rather than 2.6%.
Research company PMR reported that Baltic states saw an average construction growth rate of 10.8% between 2011 and 2014, with an average construction growth rate of 10.8% between 11 and 14. Lithuania's construction output performed slightly less well than its Estonian counterpart, where an average annual growth rate of 11.4% was recorded, but marginally better than Latvia, where the construction sector expanded by 10.5% year-on-year during the period. However, Lithuanian construction output rose by 16.7% in 2014, the third most substantial amongst EU countries.
The Concrete Initiative, which has been put together by a group of European associations, is calling for higher levels of investment into sustainable construction to boost jobs and growth in Europe, while helping to build the continent's low-carbon economy. A conference in Brussels, Belgium, also heard that a study was claiming the multiplier effect of investment in cement and concrete construction is close to 3 times for jobs in the wider EU economy.
A full account of that conference and all the other stories we have mentioned can be downloaded from the website at www.khl.com. So let's take a look at what we can expect to see next year in the European construction market. In November I gave a more in-depth look at the market in a video which can be found at the khl.com video zone and on YouTube. But basically it seems to be good news for Europe. The optimism of the past few years is finally looking realistic, as some of the stories we have covered in 2015 have clearly suggested. At the European Construction Industry Federation, FIEX, Congress, Vice President Jean-Louis Marchand said he felt that 2014 was a turning point, but that a return to growth would be fragile. Things are heading in the right direction though, and we're talking about a market of 1.21 trillion euros in 2014. So any growth is going to add up to a great many euros.
And 2016 is a Bauma year. It seems like almost the entire construction world will be in Munich, Germany in April to see what's new at this major trade fair. Most of the major manufacturers will be there with new and improved models, and it is of course a great networking opportunity. In the 3 issues of Construction Europe leading up to the show, we'll be doing our best to help visitors to the show plan who to see, with a preview, a show guide and a stop press.
KHL has a stand there, so please stop by, or if you see us out and about at the show, do say hello. There will be other shows in 2016, for example Hillhead in the UK. That's always a good show as it's held in a quarry and there are plenty of chances to see machines at work. Let's hope for good weather.
Other events this year include the International Awards for Powered Access, the IAPAs. The awards are organised by KHL with IPAF, the International Powered Access Federation, which will be holding its summit conference at the same time. It will be on March the 16th to 18th in Madrid, Spain.
ESTA is the European Association of Abnormal Road Transport and Mobile Cranes. Its awards, organised by KHL, will be in Munich in April during Bauma.
Cranes and Transport Turkey, another KHL event, will be held in Istanbul in November. Details of all the KHL awards and conferences can be found by clicking the Events tab at www.khl.com.
So, apart from the events that have been arranged for this year, it's hard to predict what will happen in 2016. There are issues that will affect the construction industry and have still to be sorted. To some extent, it's a case of rounding up the usual suspects. CC has pointed to engine emissions, outdoor noise limits, and machine safety standards. It's looking for special attention to be paid regarding the issue of skills development and the availability of future engineers. It also wants a stronger profile for the European construction equipment sector towards EU legislators. Whatever happens, Construction Europe will be there to keep its readers up to date with the latest developments, whether it's technological advances, legislation or financial.
As always, the news will be available on the website at khl.com, via our weekly newsletter. You can sign up at khl.com, and through the paper version of the magazine. The magazine is also available as a digital download and in its tablet version with loads of additional pictures and other extras.
We also do videos with reviews like this one, plus interviews as well as factory and site reports. And then there are the monthly podcasts, which could suit readers who are on the move. Again, all the video and podcast downloads can be found on khl.com, but also on iTunes. You can search for KHL Group there. Joe and I will be out and about visiting people in the industry and at conferences throughout the year. So let's hope that this is the year that finally sees a serious recovery in Europe, in as many countries as possible. It's certainly about time. Maybe we'll see you during the year, perhaps at Bauma.